Hey everybody! Today we're going to be doing the fourth modding bootcamp. It's going to be led by our senior technical designer Matteo De Santis. He's going to be focusing on how to use layouts in Workbench to create graphical interfaces. I will hand things over to Matteo, and I hope you guys all enjoy.
Okay, so creating UIs in Workbench, we do that through a dedicated editor that you can access from the list of editors. It's specifically the layout editor. So let's start by creating a layout file. Right-click on your content where your resource browser, GUI layout. This will allow you layout to access the layout editor. Now, how does this work? The dedicated class to create, to let's say display information on screen is the so-called widget class. There are various types of widgets. These are organized into hierarchies that you will be able to define inside your layout files. So the layout editor allows you to see here right in the middle in the viewport the look of your current layout. On the right here, you have the hierarchy of your layout where you can see how the widgets are connected to each other. And when you click on a widget, you can see its properties and modify how it looks and how it behaves, it reacts to, let's say, player interactions, that sort of stuff. Right. So all menus, all HUD elements, everything that has to do with user interfaces that you see in Arma Reforger has been done through this method. They are layout files that get added to the screen basically at runtime while you play the game. They are made through a series of widgets that are connected to each other, and we have scripts and functionality for them to animate and to respond to player input, that sort of stuff. So, as I've said, you start by creating your own custom layout, or as always, when it comes to modding, you can start by like overriding an existing one that we made, but we'll get to that later. And you want to decide what this layout needs to do, if it needs to display data, if it needs to respond to player inputs like mouse click or controller, buttons, that sort of stuff. And depending on what you want to achieve, you will basically go to this Create tab on the right and choose the correct widget types. You can read more about what these widgets do in the script editor. You can see the API that is exposed for all these classes. And if you look for a widget, you can also see like all this is the base class, and then what you use in the layout editor is all the derived classes from that. And mostly widgets are, let's say, we can divide the widgets into categories that are specific to displaying data. An example would be the text widget, for instance, where it shows a text on screen, or the image widget, right? So we can show a texture, we can show an icon, stuff like that. And as I've said, by clicking on each widget, you have access to its properties. So each specific type of widget will allow you to modify different properties depending on what the widget is supposed to do. So you have widgets to display data, you have widgets to react to player inputs, like the buttons, for instance, or the sliders, or like the checkboxes. Where are they? Canvas. Whatever, insomma, checkbox widget, there you go. What you will find yourself doing is basically attempting to construct a hierarchy in your layout that organizes these two types of widgets, the ones that are meant mostly to display data and the ones that are meant to react to player inputs. And you have a third, let's say, category of widgets that are the, let's call them containers, that are meant to organize your layout. For example, as soon as you open a new layout, the very first thing you have as the very root of your hierarchy of widgets is this frame widget, which is a generic container. When you place a widget inside of it, that child widget has access to a bunch of properties for sizing, position inside of the frame widget. This is something that is common to all widgets. Some widgets basically allow you to insert other widgets inside, and they organize their children depending on like different parameters that you have control over. Like the frame is one, a more like generic one that allows you to control position, sizes. It's awesome for animating things inside your layout, for instance. Another alternative that is very common is the horizontal or the vertical layout widget, where as the name suggests, it allows you to stack widgets together and automatically places them on an horizontal line. So the way we've constructed all our interfaces, basically all our menus, is by organizing our hierarchies of widgets through these containers in order to associate like widgets that, as I've said, are meant to display and give you information about what's going on in the game, and others that are meant for you to interact with more explicitly. This is the gist of how you basically select your widget and create your layouts. With this, you end up with usually rather complex hierarchies. One example for we can look at is the main menu, where, as you can see, you have, again, the root frame, and then you have a bunch of containers that extend the hierarchy based on needs. Like this area here, for instance, there is a widget sides layout that is meant to control and define a specific sides for the children, and inside there is a vertical layout, which is gonna be our main menu, and then there are the three main categories: header, content, and footer for our menu. And this is basically how it works. Which widget to use where, it depends on what you need. As I've said, we have widgets that are specialized to specific functionality, like displaying images and icons, like text input fields. The edit box, for instance, allows you to write text in it. We have the buttons for anything that has to take player input, so clicks for the mouse, holding, double click, that sort of stuff. We have widgets that are meant, like the sides layout, to enforce and control the sides of your child hierarchy that is contained within it. And you mix and match, basically. That's the idea. Now, when you place a widget inside a container, for instance, my image inside this horizontal layout, the child widget gets assigned a slot class that depends here in the properties transform, that depends on the parent. And it allows you to choose where it should be and how it should behave, that specific widget should behave inside the parent. This alignment, horizontal and vertical alignment, padding, how much space should it have compared to the area defined by the parent. If it should automatically expand to fill all the area offered by the parent, that sort of stuff. This slot class depends on what the widget is inserted into. For instance, like the horizontal layout has as a slot the frame slot, frame widget slot, which allows you, as I've said, to set position sizes, while if you go to the children of the horizontal layout, the slot is the layout slot that has slightly different settings. In general, you want to focus on creating your UIs with specialized widgets. If you need to stack something on, let's say, an horizontal line, go for the horizontal layout. If you need something to be inside of something else, you can use the overlay that is specific to basically have multiple widgets inside of each other. Let me demonstrate real quick if I can find the image widget. Let's put an image inside our overlay. For instance, let's make stretch, change the color to be black, and then I can place a text inside, and the text will be on top. And as you can see, within the overlay, you have a background and you have a text on top of the background. This is another key thing that we can see with the overlay, is that the order in which you insert children inside a container is also how they appear on your screen. In this case, the image is literally below the rich text. Okay. Okay, so now once you have created your layout, you have something, perhaps let's make this, I don't know, a little bit nicer. Wrap this into with this is an important thing that should know. With right click, you have a bunch of options that are relative to the widget that you are right clicking on. For instance, you can wrap them and automatically insert basically a widget on the level immediately above as a parent. Let's give this, for instance, a size layout and give it, I don't know, 500 pixel width or something like that. Why not? Make this stretch. I'm just doing some, let's say, random things. Eh, eh, And then we're gonna say to our horizontal layout to adapt to the content. There you go. Okay, let's say that you have your widget. Cool. How do you make this appear on screen? There are two main ways of displaying widgets on your screen, and these are the menu system and the HUD, the HUD. So one is meant the menus for anything that is also interactable, while the HUD is mostly just the HUD is mostly to display data that is relevant to what is going on during gameplay while you are controlling your character and you have a weapon. The HUD will allow you to display the magazine, right? How many ammunition you have, that sort of stuff. The menus, on the other hand, are usually something that tends to cover the entire screen, or it is in general the only thing that you're supposed to be interacting as a player at that point. So you're gonna be looking at the screen and it's gonna be filled with widgets that are going to handle your clicks, your interactions, buttons, for instance, or edit boxes or sliders or whatnot. Let's take a look at that, at how we can now make this layout widget. And before we do that, let's also perhaps set these to be in the center of the screen by modifying the settings in the slot class. There you go. And we can use the alignment to perhaps make this even more centered. There you go. Okay. So now that we have this, let's save. We want this to appear. Now, Arma Reforger obviously comes already with a lot of menus, so we could, in theory, just, if we wanted to, just place this layout file here inside another existing layout. Like if we want this to appear in the main menu, nothing stops us from just grabbing the layout file and placing it underneath a container in another layout file. In this case, in our main menu, we can just insert our my layout, our new layout file. And this way, it's going to act as a sort of prefab, where when it's just a hierarchy, a subset of widgets that gets recreated, duplicated, let's say, in your other layout, with all the settings of the widgets inside that are going to be basically taken from the original layout file. So anything that I set up in here, like the color of this image, will be automatically already in the instance that I insert in another layout. And this way you can modify existing layouts by just creating your own, dragging and dropping inside your the other files. And then you can go in and override and change whatever properties you want. Like, let's make this red or something. Okay. And in this case, I will need to do this in order to bring it to the top. But since this is an override, and we'll talk about overriding and modding existing layout a little bit more in depth in a moment. In this case, if I were to now play, this would not show. It would still go, I think, as the very first one. Not sure, honestly, but there is a quirk with how the ZOrder property influences modding, but we get there. Let's for now focus on just making this my layout appear in the game, perhaps as a new menu. Why not? So, how does the menu system work in Arma Reforger? Well, we have a config file, Chimera menus, that has a list of all the menus that are in the game. So if we want to create a new menu, we need to add it in Chimera menus. Chimera menus is, of course, set in the where is add-on project. Can I see it here? Because of course you don't have access to the Reforger, the project. MenuManager settings, there you go. Menu config, Chimera menus config, okay. .conf. This is the where we are defining that Chimera menus is the config file, and of course you can add your own. As far as I know, it should be fine. But let's for now add it to our existing Chimera menu, which, as you can do with anything, any config file, you can override them in your add-on. So you right-click, override in Bootcamp 4, and it's gonna create an override in our add-on of config system Chimera menus. And here we can see that the resource variant now is Bootcamp 4, where I can now add a new menu, and with my menu, there we go. It adds an entry to the array of menus. It asks us to choose a layout. Let's give it my layout. And it asks us a class that will be a menu class that is the main manager, main handler, let's say, main control of this menu layout. Let's talk a little bit about menu classes then. If we go to our script editor, we can see that there is a class called menu base. There we go, which is the base class for all menus. You need to inherit from this, and in our case specifically, we have Chimera menu base as a child. Chimera menu base. There we go. That comes from menu base, which is like the base class that we use in pretty much all our menus. It has a bunch of useful stuff like events and things that you can benefit from. And so what we want to do in order to give our new menu manager class is to create a script file, and we can, in this case specifically, let's go game. Let's actually just duplicate, and this is gonna be our Chimera menu base. Why not? Create a new script file. Get rid all of this. There you go. And let's do class my menu dot menu base. Where is the keyboard? There you go. Validate. Save. Mm. Give the name of our class to our menu entry. And in here now we can use events that menu base provides, these ones that are happening at specific points of the menu's lifetime. Once it gets opened and stuff happens to it, we can override one of these. Like for instance, let's do it on menu open. Here, override. And what are we gonna do? Let's say that we know that we have in my layout, please compile, thank you very much. We have our text widget and we want to change the value of our text widget. Well, we need to somehow find this widget specifically inside our layout. We know that our menu system will create this layout and it will associate my menu to it. My menu, if I'm not mistaken, is actually added, let's say, attached to the layout, to the root of the layout as a component. And so on menu opened, we can get the root widget of this menu, and we can do find any widget, which is there is also a find widget method which asks for what's going on with my keyboard. Yeah, there you go. Okay, which asks for like the full path, but find any widget just asks for the name of the widget. So if we now give it the name, there you go. It's a rich text, and we can do then rich text widget. My text equals rich text widget dot cast. Get root widget, find any widget. Right, yes. Find any widget will return a widget, so we can cast it to my text, and then from the variable we can do set text. It's a text after all, and we can say hello. Okay, so this is how you find widgets inside your. Of course, you can cache these as a member variable and whatnot in order to call methods on them, modify them, which means anything that gets to know a widget can find any other widget inside among, let's say, his children. So this my text, of course, this would work only if there is a rich text widget called rich text 0 inside of this layout hierarchy. Okay, so now we want this to appear somewhere in our game somehow, and in order to do that, let's create a component that will open this menu, and which requires me to talk a little bit about the ability that widgets have to hold script components. So on top of being able to create a menu that has a layout and that has a menu manager class, you can also place specific behaviors on the widgets themselves through components. So if I go here on root frame, for instance, you can see that if I scroll down in my properties, I have an array of possible components that this root frame can have. And we have a lot of them that basically perform functionality. Some of it is generic, like buttons that animate, loading spinners, that sort of stuff. Some of it is specific to certain layouts. for now, let's create a generic, a simple class my component that we can use to open our menu that we just made. And in order to have a component, you need to inherit from scripted widget component. So scripted widget component. There you go, build, validate and compile, and now I have this my component, and I'm not following our like coding standards with the prefixes and stuff, but forgive me. And now I can go to any widget in any of my layout, and I will find my new component. So I can add it, and of course I can, as always, expose attribute for it, right? I can do int my int, for instance, build, validate, and now I will be able to set the value of this integer in my layout. So if I go here, there is the component, my component, and it has my attribute. Okay, as you might notice, it's also signified here in the hierarchy by these brackets. So this tells you that the widget has a component. You have the name, you have if it has components, you have if the type of the widget here under the class column prefab. The prefab column tells you if the widget is part of a prefab. So if I were to just real quick, maybe create another my layout, and then I were to place my layout 2 inside my horizontal layout, as you can see here, it specifies that this here is another prefab, and anything underneath, it tells you that belongs to this guy. Basically, these are widgets that are not in this layout, but are part of the prefab that is inserted in it, okay? That do not come directly, let's say, from this layout. Cool. Okay, so we have components. Let's now get rid of this guy and let's script some simple behavior for this component to open our menu. So how does it work? Our components, they get from this class, script widget event handler, a bunch of events about mostly interactions or things that are happening to that widget or to that widget's children. And we have one event in particular, which is handler attached. This is our initialization event. So let's override this. And this will allow you to script behavior for when the component is attached to the layout. What does that mean? That a menu, let's say, gets opened, the layout gets created, and all the widgets are going to be initialized and added to the hierarchy in runtime, to the runtime hierarchy, right? Starting actually from the bottom. So when this menu will be opened, this layout will be created, let's say, and all these widgets will be added, and they will be initialized starting from the bottom going towards the top, if I remember correctly, and any component that we define should be on them will be instantiated and attached to the runtime instance of the widget, at which point the handler attached event will be called, which means it's the event that happens when the component starts, let's say, operating in game. Let's say that to simplify, and we can use this to do MenuManager dot open MenuManager. Where is it? Get top menu, get open menu. There you go. Open menu. And we need some way to open this my menu. How does that work? Basically, in our config file, we defined our menu. We gave it a name to the entry. Now, we need to add an entry with this same name to Ninam that we have, that in script lists all menus, is this one, Chimera menu preset. You can find in Chimera menu base. You can see that our open menu asks for script menu preset enum parameter preset. So we need an entry basically from in this Chimera menu preset enum in order for this method to know that it needs to open one of the menus inside the Chimera menus config file. Specifically, we need an entry that has this name because that's how it's gonna be recognized. So let's do that. Let's mod our Chimera menu preset enum. Modded enum, Chimera preset enum, preset, and let's add an entry called my menu. I think this should be perfectly fine. So we can go in here and do open menu, Chimera menu preset, my menu. Okay, validate. Trying to call non-static function, static, haha, sorry, right. We need to do get game. The menu manager is instantiated by game, I think. Get, so if I do get menu manager, there we go. We get the instance of the currently active menu manager, and we can then ask it to open menu. Perfect. Okay. And now let's add this component to an existing layout. And of course, this is just to demonstrate, but you can do this with anything. But let's, for instance, go to our UI. Let's do layouts and I don't know, let's use menus and add it to play menu, maybe. Gem menu, inventory, main menu, map to a play menu. There we go. Let's say that for some reason, when we open the play menu, we're gonna add my component. So as soon as can't open menu unknown preset. Oh, did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? My test menu. Okay. And in here we do test menu, my test menu. Now, if I did everything correctly, as soon as we go to the play menu, it doesn't work. Okay, what did I do wrong? Oh my gosh. Under attached. I've added my component. I haven't created. Can I even, is this allowed? I don't think. No, sorry. I forgot that I cannot modify the play menu directly, obviously. I need to override it. Okay, so as with anything that exists that comes from the Arma Reforger codebase, also layout files can be overridden, right? As with config files. So you can go there, you can right click on any layout and you can override it in your add-on, at which point it should show here in your variants. Okay, and now you are free to add your new components. It's still telling me that the preset is unknown. Why though? This might be something that I need to ask Mario about. Well, let's see if we can manage to do this. If it gets we get this to work. Otherwise, I'm probably missing something and I cannot see it right now, but fine. It says that it's an unknown preset, but it shouldn't be unknown. Where did I save this? Restart Workbench. Okay. It's starting to act up. Okay, let's try to restart Workbench. Of course, why not? Let's restart Workbench. Okay, let's try this again. Go to World, main menu, play, and it's still not working. Is this Workbench acting up, or am I forgetting something? Whatever. I think it's Workbench acting up. Camera menu preset, mighty test menu, modded enum. Where is this script file? Not showing. Stop. Okay. Bootcamp, UI, layout, system, scripts, game, UI, menu. This looks perfectly fine. Okay. Well, we'll get back to this later. Let's move on. So what should have happened in theory is that the menu should have opened like with that layout and everything, but I honestly don't understand why it's not happening. Whatever. Let's just for a test, let's try opening the group menu instead when we go to the play menu. Why not? Play, and it's not working. The play menu is the version that has the component on it, right? Yes, my component. Jump to script definition. Yes. Okay, well, I don't know. We'll try some in-game thing. Okay, no problem. Yeah, let's move on. So this failed, but it's in theory one of the ways to open to create widgets and have them appear in your UI. Let's try instead to let's try to do this. Let's do modded class main menu UI, and let's override on menu opened. Okay, and from here do this. If this fails, we'll move on. Open menu. Okay. Let's see if this works now. Yes, there we go. Okay. Of course, it's not meant to do that, but right, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. So I'm modding the main menu class to open another menu on menu open. There we go. Okay. So now whenever I go into the main menu, automatically this my new test menu is opened, and as you can see, it gets added to the screen. What do I mean by adding something to the screen? It gets added to the very root of all hierarchy layouts, which is the Workspace widget. You can look at it here. This is going to always be there's gonna always be one Workspace widget as the very root of all your UI hierarchies, and then layouts will be basically your prefab. Let's say that they define which widgets should be created and added as children of the workspace, and this is true for menus as well. When a menu is opened, it gets added to the workspace. When you open another menu, it gets added on top. Okay? Cool. Now, I've opened another menu in the workspace. You can also, from the workspace itself, get workspace, you can create widgets, which asks you a resource name for a layout file, and this will directly add, create the widgets and add them to the workspace, and you can specify, as you can see in the tooltip, the parent widget as a parameter. If left null, I think they get added directly to the workspace. So another way that we could use to open our layout could be to simply add this text widget directly. Let me make this a string. There we go. As a child, for instance, of the root of the main menu. Get rid of this. Okay. So what you end up with in game basically is, and it's not showing probably because it's below. Fine, no problem. What you end up, as I was saying, with is in game is hierarchies that are similar as the ones that you define in your layouts, nested inside each other, and all that nice stuff. Okay, as I was telling you, layouts can be overridden. Let's, for instance, go to our override of our main menu here. And inside my overridden layout, I can take my own custom layouts and place them in the override. Awesome. Now, I have added my layout as a new element inside main menu. Problem is that it is below everything else. There is the background that is covering it. I can, as I've said, move it to be the top, but this will probably not work, because even if in a normal widget, the order of the widgets inside a parent actually dictates how they appear on top, you need to know that when you override a layout and insert a new element, you actually need to explicitly set it as the top one through this parameter here that all transform, let's say, paragraph in the characteristics in the attributes of widgets have. All widgets have this ZOrder, which is the order at which the children are organized inside a parent. So if I raise this number, it's gonna basically jump to the top, because even if it's the first child of this frame widget, so it should in theory be below, it's gonna get pushed to the top because it has a higher ZOrder compared to the other children. Okay? So this way I can make sure that my layout that I've inserted, my modification that I've inserted in an override of an Arma Reforger menu, can be on top. I can control the order at which it appears. So probably here what I should be doing after creating the widget is calling set ZOrder method to raise the ZOrder of this newly created layout so it goes on top, but whatever. No need to show it now. The important thing is that you grab you get the idea. Okay, a few more words about widgets specifically. Let's go back to our layout editor. I'll look a little bit more in depth to what kind of attributes the widgets have. Specifically, these ones under behavior are quite vital. Because they control the visibility of a widget and its children. They control if that widget should respond to interactions So enabled means it's actually capable of generating interaction events. These interaction events, as I told you, are then cooked by, let's say, created by, fired by, received by scripted widget event handler, which will allow any widget component that you have in your layout to respond to the interaction events that are created by an enabled widget. A widget needs to be in an enabled hierarchy, so something that you will find is very common when working with layouts. You have to think about the whole hierarchy. So if I change a flag on a parent widget, then what's gonna happen to the children? If I change the size of something inside a container, what's going to happen to the parent container? There are these relationships between widgets where parents have controls over some properties of the children, children influence how the change how the parent behaves, that sort of stuff. Okay, so as I was saying, a widget can be invisible, can be disabled, you can modify the opacity, you can modify the clipping. So if, for instance, this was set to have a width of 40, the rich text would not fit, but we could tell it to not clip the children, and so the rich text now is able to go outside of the boundaries set by the parent through the clipping attribute. You can set tooltips on your widgets. We have this scripted widget tooltip object that I'll get to in a moment if I have time. And you can set a widget to not ignore cursor, and this basically makes the widget react to those events that are relative to cursor. So mouse enter, mouse leave. Some widgets can generate clicks, some cannot. Some widget can generate double click and focus and that sort of stuff. It depends on the widget type, which events you will be able to receive on a component that is on that widget. Specifically, a component doesn't even actually need to be on a widget to receive these events, because all these events are actually propagated upwards in the hierarchy. So let's say that I place my component on my horizontal layout, and then I have a button inside. When I click this button widget is able to generate a non-click event. So any component on the button will be able to receive this on-click event and override, as I've shown you here, just override the event and then execute the code when that event is received by the component, but also it will be propagated upwards in the hierarchy, so any component on the horizontal layout will also be able to receive the on-click event generated by the button, and any component on the root frame, and so on and so forth. And this is something that you have to keep in mind when working with these events. Let's just to demonstrate that real quick, and then we're gonna talk about how to create an HUD element. If in my component here, let's not do this, let's instead override event on click, and I'm going to print hello. There we go. Right bool on click, and it's a bool, so I need to return something, of course. Return false, and we'll talk about the return value in a second. Save. Okay, let's go back in here. Okay, so now we have our button, and our button, actually, let's place it inside here, make it bigger, button to the very top, make it stretch. Okay, now if I place my component, sorry, not this one, my component in here, and I click on the button. When I click on the button, my component will actually print hello. But also, if I place my component here, we'll see probably on the console that we're gonna print hello twice. We can try that real quick. Click hello, hello. Okay. This is because the event was generated by the button, so the component on the button got it, then it was propagated upwards to the parent, the overlay, so the overlay also received it and was able to execute some code when received. Now, of course, you have the parameter of the widget that actually generated the event, so you can distinguish which one it is, and that's how you react to player interactions. Okay, another very important parameter about the widgets, very important attribute, is this navigation area here, which controls how focus behaves. What is focus? It's the button, the element inside the layout that is currently selected for controllers and keyboards. An example, you have it in the main menu. The widgets that are highlighted by the border, are the ones that are currently focused. So these are buttons, basically. And when I move around using my keyboard, I am changing the focus of the widget, the focused widget rather, which of course will generate the appropriate on focus and on focus lost events. Okay, and from the workspace, you can also ask which one is the currently focused widget. So this is something that you have to keep in mind when you create your layouts. There are some specific widgets like buttons that are meant to also be able to handle controller and keyboard navigation for the menu functionality, basically. And on controller specifically, when or on keyboard, when you press enter or like the confirm button on a controller, you automatically will generate a click on whatever widget is currently focused. Okay, which also changes behavior depending on the widget type, because the edit box might enter write mode, that sort of stuff. Okay, cool. Another thing is then now that we need to talk about is about HUD. We've seen how to add widgets to hierarchies at runtime. We've tried to take a look at how to create menus, sort of failed there, and don't know what was going on. Let's take a quick look at the HUD now. So how does that work? The HUD is handled by a HUD Manager component, which is, there you go, HUD Manager component, which you will find most of the time on the player controller. Player controller. Now I need to remember which one it is. Actually, the default maybe should have one. Oh, how can I actually see the create variant? Edit. Ad manager component. Yes. Now, what does the ad manager component do? It allows you to define info displays. These info displays, let me increase this a little bit. These info displays are similar to menu classes. They are the managers that are supposed to modify the look of specific layouts. So what you need to do in order to add an element to your HUD is to create a class that inherits my info display, that inherits from info display extended, SCR info display extended. This will allow you to add your info display to your HUD manager. You should be able to find it here. There we go. And an info display similarly to menu classes, it comes with a bunch of methods that you can override for to execute code at specific points in the lifetime of your info display. And it comes also with a lot of existing functionality that controls how it should, the info display itself, it should look and behave. Like, for instance, which layout should it spawn, in which layer the HUD allows you to make elements appear on different layers. And this is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is to specify a handler. And what are these handler? These are classes that basically allow you to place the info display inside a specific slot. This is tied to a system that we have, which is the manager. There we go. This, or even better, HUD manager root. We have basically a system that allows you to define dynamically adjusting slots, and most likely you can simply use the ones that we have already created. And you can place these slots inside your in-game layouts. If you take a look at the pause menu, for instance, let's do that real quick. Pause menu. This one, we can see that there it is. We have slots for some specific info displays that we want to appear in this menu. So every in-game menu allows you to choose by grabbing one of these or more of these slots, what you want, where you want it, and it's going to allow you to, through the settings on their components, if I remember correctly, it allows you to define how much space will be given to the specific contents of this slot, and it will dynamically adjust based on the available screen size. So you can have more space for the chat, or when the chat is not open, you can have more space for the VON and whatnot. That needs to be specified inside your HUD manager. There we go. You can see, for instance, that the screen effects have a handler that is an info display layer handler, and it specifies that the info displays should be inserted in whatever is present in the current top menu in game that is called slot screen effects. So it's gonna find the system automatically a slot if it is present. I don't know, I don't remember honestly if the pause menu, do we have, yes, slot screen effects, right? So the screen effects in the pause menu are gonna be appearing inside of this slot because it was manually inserted in the pause menu and it is specified in the slots info display, and the screen effect info display, sorry, that they should be inserted inside the slot through the info display layer handler, and the system will automatically take care of creating the effects based on what you define inside your script class that inherits from info display extended. And this is how you show UIs on like parts of the HUD, new elements of the HUD, and how our system works to show HUD elements. Okay, let's go back to our layout real quick because I want to show you another part of the customization that is allowed through the widgets, which are the styles. Under the widget tab here, you can find style. What are styles? They are predefined looks for our elements. There are different styles for different widget types. For instance, we have this blank style for the button that makes it invisible and allows you to see whatever is below while maintaining the interactivity of the button itself, for instance. What are styles? You can look for style files here, and let's open custom, for instance. Let's see our button widget. And you see that there is a blank style for it, and it says it cannot open. Okay, fine. I don't know if I have to override this to actually be able to modify this. Default editor, I don't know, default. Smart panel. Let's see if I can see. No, it's not opening. So maybe I do have to override this to actually be able to show this properly. No? Interesting. Do I have to restart Workbench again? But we are sort of running out of time. So let me explain this real quick. Styles allow you to choose an image set for to define the look of a widget, and you are required to select the parts from the image set that I don't know why the editor now is not working in here specifically, but we will see in the viewport here the actual image set, and we will be able to associate part of the image set to specific corners of our widget. So for instance, for the smart panel, we will see that here we will have the default style that shows how the bottom part of the widget should look from an image set. Let's see if I can open this image set actually. But it doesn't even allow me to, cannot open. Yeah. Not sure what's going on there, but whatever. So image sets. Let's spend a few words on image sets. For instance, our wrapper UI image set, which is the where are you? Where are you? There you go. This is like our main collection of icons for the whole game. Image sets are they are a collection of images. They are divided inside named quads that you can then reference in your, for instance, image widgets. Let's do that real quick, actually. Let's say that I want to create an icon here. I already have my image here. Let's say that together with this, I also want right before it, I want an icon. So I'm going to grab an image widget. I'm going to place it here. And now in my image widget, I can select my UI wrapper. There you go. And I need to specify the name of the icon I want. So each, as I've said, each image contained in an image set has a name associated to it. So let's grab this star and say favorite. Favorite. Let's do favorite. And now, as you can see, the image widget is displaying that specific icon from the selected image set. Okay. Sadly, I cannot really show you the styles, but what we will be able to do is to, for instance, take this, see it here in the center or in the viewport, and say that, for instance, the smart panel widget as the center or as the left bottom corner could use one of these images. So then when we were to using here as that style for the smart panel, it will automatically take that image. And this is basically how we achieve the stuff like rounded corners for, I don't know, let's say, for our tooltips, for instance, tooltip base. No, not this one. This one. You can see that the background here is a smart panel that is using this style specifically rounded to pixel, and this is going to be defined in one of the style files, but sadly it seems to be having trouble actually opening the image set to show it. Sadly. Well, whatever. The corners. I invite you to experiment with this on your own, of course. But here, as you can see, yeah, these are the parts. So you can imagine that in the style attributes, you will say that, for instance, left is gonna be left, I guess, top left is gonna be this one, right? Or top right, bottom left, and whatnot. You associate them to these elements here, and then you can select them in your style here. And it's gonna give you the rounded corners, which is not really showing here, but whatever. 2 pixels perhaps is a little bit too little. There you go, like outline rounded, and the style now has changed and it has modified the look of the background of our tooltip. Okay. Okay, so we covered a lot of things. We saw how to create layout files. We talked a little bit about the different widget types and about how widgets are meant to be contained and organized inside each other. An example is, for instance, as I said, the main menu. And we talked about the ability of widgets to have components, something that you'll find we use a lot because you have components that can modify the look of a button, that have reactions that play sounds, that sort of stuff when you click them, or you can have components that manage a hierarchy and they are meant to find specific widgets so they can display data, that sort of stuff, right? The name of a scenario, for instance. And we talked about menus and Chimera menus and how you can create your own custom menus and have your menu class and have that being added and open the menu being added to the workspace. Okay, and we also talked a little bit about the HUD manager, info displays, we talked about styles, we talked about how the events work for components a little bit, we talked about the workspace widget, we really quickly took a look at the menu manager. Another important class is the widget manager that has a bunch of useful stuff like getting the mouse position, get widget under cursor, okay. These are part of the API that you'll need to explore. There's going to be documentation, of course, that you can take a look at. You can ask Mario for anything. And that's basically the gist of it. Are we out of time, I think, right? No? I can keep going? Well, okay, let's just show you one last thing then. Where is the world? Let's go back to where are you? I want to go to this is the prefab to the main menu world. I want to play in main menu. There we go. Do I have the debug console? Yes, you have debug tools for your UI, so you can activate the log of the construction of a widget. So whenever I create a new layout, it's gonna give you all the widgets that have just been added to the workspace. Really cool. You can change how the localization behaves, so have unlocalized strings for debug purposes. This is pretty cool. The UI diag, this will show you the widget under the cursor, anything that is under cursor. So it's gonna show you in the console the whole hierarchy that you have under the cursor, and maybe let's go full screen here. Yes. Including information about the type of the widget that you have beneath, about its color, the layout it belongs to, if it's an image widget, what image does it have, and this gives you like all the information you need to get a clear view at your there you go, at your layouts. And dog widget under cursor, that's pretty much most that you need to know. We can add to these that we also have, and I invite you to read more about them. I've mentioned tooltips. You can, we use them like in core menus. If you go here, if you hover an element, as you can see, a tooltip appears. This is a class that's called scripted widget tooltip, and it's set inside here. Scripted widget tooltip. I invite you to explore a little bit the documentation about it, but the way it works is that it uses config files to define how the tooltip should look, and then it creates, handles the how it should move and everything. If I go to like common tooltips, for instance, There we go. We can see that we have presets where you can choose what's the content of the widget, how it should move when you're using mouse, how it should move when you're using gamepad. A similar system we have for dialogues. It's called Configurable Dialog. Configurable Dialog. So, for instance, if we take a look at common dialogues, there you go. Similar config file where you can define the look of the dialog. So when you click on the exit game button in the main menu, this is what actually is defining that dialog should have a specific message, title, buttons, and whatnot. I invite you to explore this system as well. And I'd say that's pretty much it. As a starting point, I understand it's quite a lot, and there is quite a lot more that we would need to cover, but I think we are done.
Thanks, Matteo, for
Thank
this
you.
boot
Thanks
camp.
everyone for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye bye.